Hello and welcome to the Transformation Project, a podcast and community for women who are looking to transform into the best version of themselves no matter where they are at. A place where you can listen, learn, and laugh along with us as we dive deep into different topics to help you live a happier, healthier, and more fulfilled life. Remember, we are all learning here together, and therefore the content and opinions of the hosts and our guests should not be taken as medical advice. Please consult your healthcare professional for any medical questions.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Transformation Project. We are so excited to have you here. And we're pretty excited today because we ask you guys at the end of every episode, if you have anything that you want us to chat about, or if you have anything you want us to cover, please reach out. And so this particular topic that we're covering today was brought to us by one of our listeners who would really love us to share more on this particular condition that a lot of women may be living with in silence. This is something that Jess and I actually did not know was a thing that existed. And so we're really excited to welcome Jacinta Lee on today. Jacinta is the founder of Open Hands, Soft Palms, which is a women's movement dedicated to empowering women through devotional, embodied sexual wellness program and self-awareness. She's also been a registered nurse for 12 years and in the health industry for 16 years. She's also a sex, love, and relationship coach specializing in women's sexuality. And so if you haven't got the hint so far, we are talking about some sexually related issues today, and we're covering the topic of vaginismus. So welcome on, Jacinta. So lovely to have you on with us today.
Thank you for inviting me, Jessica. Thank you so much to your listeners for tuning in. I'm so happy to be here. Can't wait to dive into this topic with you today.
Yeah, it is an interesting one. And as we said, this is something that we didn't know was actually, like, I've heard of the symptoms around this condition, but I didn't realize it was a condition, and I didn't realize it had a name, and I didn't realize it would be something that could be solved for people. And I think our listener really wanted us to kind of go into that because she feels really strongly that there are other women out there that may be suffering with some of these same symptoms and not realize that there's things that they can do about it and that they are not alone. So can you tell us a little bit about vaginismus, the symptoms and what it is?
Yeah, I can. Let's dive in. So vaginismus is basically the condition of having a tightness in your vaginal passage or at your vaginal opening, causing pain upon penetration. There's primary vaginismus and then there's secondary vaginismus. So primary vaginismus is when you haven't had any kind of penetration. And secondary vaginismus is basically penetration of some kind. It doesn't necessarily need to be sexual. It could just be through the penetration of a tampon, the penetration of your finger, and it's painful. You feel that it's painful, and it's not painful for any other reason besides there's tightness. So you have a muscular tightness there.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, like Yvette said, I didn't know anything about this. And I guess for me, I thought it was all around just the pelvic floor. I've had 2 children. So like, that's kind of what I think about, like the pelvic floor. And it's almost the opposite, where it's everything kind of becomes too loose. And that's, I guess, really the only thing that I thought could be wrong with that area. So if you have this tightness, what's the first step?
I think initially it's being able to recognize the symptoms of it. I think that's the most important thing, is first saying this is painful, not just once, but it's painful every time I try, and recognizing that you have pain there, and then moving towards, you can go to either a doctor, a medical doctor, so your local GP, who can examine you, and who can then say, we either need to do further investigations. I'm not sure if it's just muscular, So they might want to do blood tests, they might want to run a pap smear, they might want to do internal ultrasounds and things like that to, I guess, eliminate ideas of oncology, so cancerous cells, to eliminate things like tearing from, let's say, things like painful childbirth, episiotomies, those kinds of obvious reasons for a vaginismus. But then if they're not sure and they can't diagnose it, they'll refer you to a gynecologist, and that gynecologist will then make a definitive diagnosis around exactly what vaginismus is. And on the topic of diagnosis, that's the best way to go. And then secondary, you can go to see if you're quite sure you've just got vaginismus and you don't really want to go down like sort of the medical path. If you're more into alternative kind of healthcare and that's not the path you want to take, you don't want to take medical healthcare, you can always go towards like naturopathy, a naturopath, and have other investigations that way. But also there's physiotherapy, and physiotherapists are the primary clinical treatment of vaginismus. So those are your clinical options. There's a little bit, there's a bit of a difference between going down the clinical pathway as to going down the alternative pathway, but they do meet. So, and they are both relevant in this particular condition.
Yeah, I think that's so important too, with anything in health, doing both. And exactly what you said, they do meet. And that's the case for so many different conditions. Like there can be a combination of both. And especially if you're going to look at the body holistically, you kind of need both. So I guess that would be super important to do both.
Yeah, ruling. I mean, you want to rule out something, that could obviously be some sort of medical issue. So how could someone come to have this condition at all? Is there a particular occurrence? Is it something you're just born with? Is there something that happens? Or how can you get this? So you could, or could you just be someone who has a perfectly normal sex life your whole life and then suddenly there's pain? Or, how does that work?
Yeah, look, there's, oh gosh, the answers are so wide and varying depending on how far down the rabbit hole you really want to go. On the surface level, so, the physical level, you're talking about things like genetics. So that's the first one that we need to mention is, the genetic root. So you've got inherited, tight muscles around this area, and that's and your conditioning, your environment, it kind of, creates those conditions for that to happen, and then that's just a natural thing that happens. And then you go down the path of having painful sex or painful penetration, and that causes like a reactive condition in the body of tightening and apprehension. And then I guess you've got traumatic penetration. So traumatic childbirth, traumatic insertion. It doesn't necessarily need to be sexual assault, but it can be sexual assault. But it could just be that you've forced yourself to have sex against your will because you think it's the right thing to do, because you don't know the difference, because you're like, oh, well, I guess this kind of needs to hurt. I don't know the difference. And that's just a very common thing that I hear a lot. In the work that I do, that you don't know that it's not meant to be painful, so you proceed, and then you continually go back to that condition and continually go back to those circumstances in which you allow penetration into your body, not knowing that it's not meant to be painful. So
I think that's the thing too, because really, unless you have a really open conversation with somebody early on, I never had a conversation with my mom or whatever about what sex should feel like or any, and I think a lot of women may be in that same kind of mindset. Nobody ever sits down and has that conversation. And I mean, to be honest, in my friendship groups, we've never really sat down and discussed our sex lives, right? So I guess because we're all kind of private people. And so how would you know then? You just don't. You just go ahead and think, well, this is how it's meant to be.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you would just keep going on and thinking, this is normal. Oh, I mean, I guess there's also situations, let's be real, about penis size and the fact that some penises are extremely big and some are not. And it does matter. It certainly does matter in vaginismus, because if you have a partner, let's say your first partner is, perfect size for you and you don't experience vaginismus at all, and you have this wonderful sexual relationship and you think, oh, this is great, and then you meet a second partner and that partner has quite a large penis, and then that penetration is definitely more painful, and that sex isn't meant to feel like this, but maybe it's just that he's got a really big penis. And that's not vaginismus. That's more just like accommodating, learning to accommodate. So knowing the difference between, this is my body and my body's learning to accommodate this kind of size, as opposed to I have tightness and I have it all the time and I've had it all my life. And, this is my condition. This is a condition that I have. I guess, there's a gray area, I guess you would say there.
And I guess that would be the difference between, having this just during intercourse, or even if you had to, try and put your own hand there or any other, I don't know, sex toy or anything, and your body immediately reacts. You'd be like, oh, hang on.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly, you're spot on. You've nailed it.
Yay me. See, you can teach old dogs new tricks.
So do you find in the work that you do with women, do they kind of come to you or when they're young, like younger, like I've tried to use a tampon and it really hurts, or is it after childbirth, or is it just after they've been sexually active for a little bit and they're like, no, this always hurts?
It can vary. Generally, when you trace a woman's history back, you'll, and it is vaginismus, you'll find that they've always had apprehension with things like inserting tampons, or, apprehension with touching their genitalia, for whatever reason. We were talking about this before we started recording, but there can be, like I said, political, religious, cultural, societal conditionings, which can lead to the inability to feel like it's okay to touch yourself, or have self-exploration or self-pleasure or self-massage. And so in that case, you would always believe that what you're experiencing is the way it's meant to be, as opposed being someone who's always explored their body and had positive affirmation around exploring their body and being like, this is how you feel, and this is how it's meant to feel, and this is how you massage, this is how you self-massage, these are the signs and symptoms of something not quite right or not feeling quite right. These are your body's somatic intuitions to tell you that no, this isn't right for me.
So let's say you're diagnosed with this. What is it? Is this just something you're going to live with forever? Are there options? Can it kind of go away?
Yeah. Okay. So say you have a formal diagnosis of vaginismus. Your treatment options are varied, depending on which pathway you want to go down. Here in Tasmania, we've got a really beautiful physiotherapist who's a pelvic floor specialist, and she's highly sought after and highly recommended. And so you do have physiotherapists that are specialists that will go through specific dilators or specific techniques to help you. What you're actually trying to do is widen your vaginal passage. So that's sort of the treatment for vaginismus, is to go through a series of exercises that are widening. So generally physiotherapists will use dilators, and they're either different size massages, or different size. So they start quite small and then they go to like a medium, and then they go to a sort of intermediate, and then a large. So as your tolerance increases, then your size, the size of the dilator will increase. And that's one way of treatment, is to go through that.
So is a dilator, is it kind of like a tampon kind of a thing, or like
You
a
can get
dildo sort of a thing, or is that?
You can have both. So
Okay.
you can have hard dilators, so they're physically hard, and you insert them as they are, like a firm plastic, I guess you would say that they are, or a firm glass. And so as your tolerance builds up, otherwise you can get dilators that are tampon size, and you pump them up with some air, and then, once they're inserted, then you go through that process. Yeah, I honestly can't imagine how painful that would be. That's not the path that I personally chose to go down for this condition. So so physiotherapy and dilators, that's one way to go down. The second path that I would recommend is yoni massage. And yoni is just a word. Basically, it's a Sanskrit word that we're describing feminine genitalia, the whole of feminine reproductive organs and feminine genitalia. And it's just a more respectful way to talk about this area of our body, because when we say vagina, the word vagina, the etymology comes back to sheath for sword. That's what vagina means. And that personally doesn't resonate with me or with a lot of women. They don't actually realize that medical words are largely patriarchal. And not that I'm against the patriarchy, I just think it's really important to be aware of the language that we use around these sacred parts of our bodies. In saying that, yoni massage, or internal yoni massage, which can be given by a professional therapist called a yoni massage therapist, your partner, or yourself. So you can give yourself self-massage using your fingers, using a pelvic wand, using a pelvic massager or a yoni massager. You don't have to use your fingers if you don't want to touch your body with your fingers, but it's really important to become more familiar with this part of your body, if you want to, I guess, not overcome, overcome the issue. Yeah, so yoni massage is super important. So you've got external yoni massage, which is massaging your external genitalia, and then there's internal yoni massage, which is massaging your internal genitalia, your internal vaginal passage. I like to call it the sacred cave, but everyone agrees with that. It's kind of like the Aladdin's cave to me.
I like that description. I'll go with that.
I like it. Yeah. So it's like, it's a muscle. It's like how you would massage if you had a sore hamstring.
Yeah, it is. And, there's so much more to go into around that area. And I'm just going to run you through the basics of it, because it's so important to know. If we don't have education, then we don't understand. And we kind of consider this part of our body separate, but it's not. It's all inclusive and it's connected to everything. So the basics of it are that your diaphragm is connected to your pelvic floor through a muscle called the psoas. So it comes down and it reaches deep into your pelvis, and connected through all of your basically connective tissue, it forms a part of the pelvic floor. So when you breathe in, your pelvic floor moves up. When you hold your breath, when you've got fear, you hold your breath. And so your psoas moves up, your pelvic floor moves up, and your vaginal muscles clench. So if you've got apprehension, which is the same as fear, apprehensive, don't want to, all you have to do is think about apprehension, think about fear, and notice your body muscles, like something that makes you feel fully afraid. When you feel fully afraid, it's not a time to have vaginal penetration. It makes sense. So, your whole body is going to respond like this. So unless you can work with your breath and work with your fear through your breath, and understand that this is a holistic body issue, it's not just about the vaginal passage, the sacred cave. It's not just about that. It's about understanding your body as a whole.
And so would something like meditation or something like that, would that be, as well as the massage, or at the same time perhaps help as far as trying to calm yourself?
Yes, meditation is definitely helpful. The ultimate goal is to have meditation and yoni massage at the same time, so that it's a guided somatic release into, the inner wisdom of your body, so that you integrate as you massage. Yeah, and that's something that I've created. Been working with a sound engineer for a long time, creating a meditative experience for both external and internal yoni massage, so that women can learn to basically be guided through any kind of somatic trigger while they're massaging, hold in that place and release that kind of fear, release that grief, release that pain, and then continue to breathe and continue to move on and continue to go through exploring their internal and external genitalia.
Right, because I imagine that would be quite important, because what we're used to doing is, the minute you feel pain, is not to sit there and hold it, it's to retreat as fast as you can. And so I imagine with a lot of women who will be going through this, the minute they feel that pain, they're like, oh, I'm hurting something, I'm breaking something, I'm doing something wrong. And they would retreat and not do that again. Whereas what I think you're saying is that what you've developed is, as far as kind of sitting there and working through that and feeling that pain, but just sitting there and then kind of working through that process. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you've done there?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'd love to. So basically, this is your vagina, and this is a pelvic wand. It's like a little snake. It's got a really small end and then a long sort of windy
curve. It looks like a little swan neck.
It is. So what you're doing is basically, gently and waiting for your body to in a way move and accommodate this, because the body will move to accommodate if it really wants to. And that's sort of part of the secret of foreplay, but it's also a part of the secret of the yoni, is that she will move and accommodate if she feels willing and wanting. So allowing that to sort of move inside slowly. So once you've got this inside, what you're doing is you're pushing it further and you're pushing around. And if you've got pain, then you're holding and you're learning to work with your breath. So you're breathing in and you're learning to let go with like the so breathing the pain in and traveling like psychologically and I guess emotionally with what's being held there. Are you full of grief there? Do you need to cry for as long as you need to cry, to release that emotional pain, because the body stores memory. All of our body stores memory, including the sacred cave, the vaginal passage. It stores memory in there. So if you've had an emotional experience, let's say it's been a sexual emotional experience that maybe wasn't the best, maybe was the best, it doesn't really matter. What happens is you've got a memory there, and maybe you need to release it. Maybe you just need to hold and release.
It's interesting you say that, because we talk about muscle memory all the time in other aspects of things that we do. I was a dancer for many years, and often if there was a particular step that I would forget, I would go 3 or 4 steps ahead and then just do it as fast as I could, and my body would automatically move into the next step if I stopped thinking. But we never consider that that you could have a muscle memory in your vagina. Didn't think about it, but it's a muscle. So it makes perfect sense that it would.
Yeah. And it's the same thing too. I'm just relating it back to childbirth. I know it's a little bit different, but for me, I tore with my daughter. So the first time I had a baby, and I went and saw a physiotherapist after and that specialized in pelvic floor. And it wasn't because my pelvic floor was weak. It's because it was tight. It was too tight. And it's that exact same thing. We worked through how the breath, like exactly what you just described. Whenever you are apprehensive or nervous, or you hold your breath and you tighten everything. So yeah, it's the exact same thing. And it's just allowing yourself to relax. As soon as you take that deep breath, I can feel my whole body relax. And it's just that, it's that letting go. So it's not even if you have vaginismus. I feel like this needs to be done for lots of different things. And I guess that's why it comes back to exactly what we were talking about before. You just need to know your body, just explore it and just know what is going to feel good and what doesn't. And yeah. I love this. I'm learning lots. And a lot of it's just like, not duh moments, but like light bulb. How long usually would you expect it to take to recover, or like you start seeing some results?
I think it depends on how often you're treating and how often you're having penetration and penetrative sex. So if you've treated your vaginismus and you're having regular sessions of massage and regular sessions of penetration, then you would expect it to resolve, within weeks and have, and if that's an ongoing thing. But I think, if for any reason you stopped for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, then you're going to have to expect that there's probably going to be a relapse there. And I don't want to talk about it as in relapse. It's just kind of natural that, if you're not really penetrating this part of your body, which is a flat tube when, when we're just walking around, we're not walking around with our, our vagina's not open. So if you're not using that muscle, then it's just like any other muscle. It's just going to get tighter and tighter and tighter. And that's my personal experience of vaginismus. And I know my body well enough to know, if I go through years of celibacy, and sometimes I do that as a practice, then I have to go through, another 6 months of allowing my body to learn what it feels like to have penetration again. And then it's fun. For me, it's a fun exploratory adventure because I feel like my body is consistently evolving and changing, and so am I. But I mean, I'm not everybody, and it's all possible that women might feel like, fuck, I have to go through this again. Fuck, it's only been 3 weeks, it's only been 2 weeks. Fuck, it's just so debilitating, I guess, and that even causes even more apprehension. Thinking, gosh, if I go 1 week without it, am I going to have to do this all again?
And so talking about that, as far as like ongoing care, so moving forward with this, what could people do to avoid, I'm going to use my little air quotes, nobody can see them, that reoccurrence or, having to go through all of it again?
Yeah. You could have, regular pelvic massage or, regular vaginal massage, regular yoni massage. You can ask your partner to train in this, to do it for you, which can increase intimacy and the intimate experience. Like honestly, the area of yoni massage is a completely different podcast, but it's a specialized therapy throughout Australia, throughout the world, really, yoni massage therapy. And training men in it and training men to give it to their partners, I think, is probably one of the most special things to ever be involved in, because
I think it sounds great.
Yeah,
they should all be trained in it.
Jessica's like, where do I
100%.
sign my husband up?
Well, I'm not going to let him listen to this podcast. He's going to be so angry with me, but 100% I agree with you.
Yeah, well, it's not, I often find like it's not that they don't want to learn, it's that they've never been told, it's that they've never been trained, it's that, and the amount of, like, you would be shocked at the men's groups that I walk into, and the amount of respect, like just pure respect and reverence and presence that men have during these kinds of trainings it's actually phenomenal. It's beyond anything that you would actually think is possible. Like, yeah, and it takes a certain amount of devotion and confidence to turn up to that, like to be in a group of 25 men learning how to give yoni massage. It's a pretty incredible event to be a part of.
And I think too, a lot of women may not ever be in that place where they feel confident to say to the man in their life, I prefer it if you do it this way, or no, that feels better than that. Something like this, as you're talking about, could really be super helpful. My question too was about, so when we were talking about this yoni massage before, and you're saying that, it's something that's specialized, how do you know that the person that you see offering this sort of massage is actually like a legitimate person who is properly trained in this. Because too, that's a huge, like that would be a huge trust if you're allowing someone else as a professional to do that to you. So how do you know that the person that you're dealing with is actually legitimate?
Yeah,
and trained?
I'm so glad you asked that question, because it's valid. It's so valid. So most people who offer this therapy are trained somatic sexologists. So they've gone through, a year or two of learning how to give yoni massage, and they're professionals. That's what they do. Yoni massage isn't cheap by a professional, which is why I recommend you train yourself or you train your partner, because you're looking at, $350, $450 for a 3-hour session in yoni massage. It's not a cheap therapy at all. And there's a difference. So there's yoni massage. So they're just learning yoni massage, and then there's yoni mapping. And yoni mapping is a little bit different to yoni massage. So in yoni mapping, you're paying a therapist to literally help you understand the internal geography of your vaginal passage and of your genitalia. So what happens in the difference between yoni massage, like I've already explained to you, is about getting in there and understanding the pain and releasing the pain, and forming more intimacy with your body and really having a loving relationship with your body. Whereas yoni mapping is going in and saying, this is your labia. Connect with your labia, connect with the feeling of your labia, like you're basically bringing up the emotions, the sensations, and your mental neurological map will start creating a map of your yoni in your mind. And then you'll go through, this is your clitoris, connect with your clitoris, connect with the feelings, connect with the sensations. And you go through every single part of your body, your labia minora, your vaginal opening, your vaginal passage, your G spot, your A spot, your cervix, your P spot, your vaginal walls. You go through all of this, and then you have a mental map. And yoni mapping is a very specialized therapy, and it's created by a woman named Bonnie Bliss. I'm not a trained yoni mapping therapist, and I would recommend Bonnie. And Bonnie only trained a specific amount of women in this therapy. And it was many years ago, maybe 6 or 7 years ago. I think she trained about 12 women in it. So yoni mapping, it's sparse. It's very sparse. It's not the same as yoni massage.
So where can people find you? Where can they find out more? Whether it's educating their husband, whether it's educating themselves?
Yeah, they can contact me on my website, which is www.jacintalee.com.au. They can send me a message on there. I take on one-on-one clients on Thursdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. And at the moment, I'm only doing online sort of education. But in October, I have my book coming out, which is called Yoni and Experimental Guide. And it has 9 sacred yoni rituals or yoni practices to help women get to know their genitalia in a way that's not expensive, that's educational, and that is available to women everywhere. That was the main, motivation driving, because I know how expensive this stuff is. I was like, there has to be a way for every woman to be able to access this kind of knowledge about their body without it costing, an arm and a leg to be able to get there. Like, we should all have this education from a young age. And the only way to give it to women is to offer it in this way. So Yoni and Experimental Guide comes out in October. We'll be releasing the books. So there's a guide, and then there's a journal to go along with that, 30-day journal. And then there's a tapas, which is a 6-month program that you do yourself at home to get to know your genitalia in an experiential way. It's got audio meditations. We've created an audio meditation for every single ritual in that book and added like a bonus meditation, which is really exciting. It's very tribal, and I love that meditation. So it took me a long time to create, probably 6 or 7 months working with a one-on-one sound engineer to get that good. Yeah.
Very cool.
I'm so excited for that.
Awesome.
This podcast recording is going to be out before that, but please, when you do release the book, please give us a heads up
Oh, I'll send you a copy of it. I'll send you copies. Don't worry.
Cool, exciting. Because we would love to be able to put that link up then once it's available so that people can go on. I think this is such an important topic, and I would love to have you back at some point to talk a little more around it, because I really do feel there's a lot of talk in general about women and sex and whatever, but really getting into those, quiet moments and learning about sexuality in in an educated way, in a respectful way, I think is possibly something that's lacking at the moment. And this is a completely different topic, but for me, something that's really concerning is like pornography at the moment, and a lot of the pornography generally depicting women in pain during sex. And so there's that as well. And so that's something I'd really love to get into, because I think that's also contributing to this particular issue of underlining
why
that it
people
should
think
be
it's
painful.
okay.
Like there's these women with this expression of pain on their face and there's no intimacy. Yeah, it just looks horrifying.
And then people just accept that, oh, well, that's how it's supposed to be.
That's how it should be. Yeah.
Yeah, I did not even think about that. I haven't even considered that's the education that I guess the youth and women of all ages for a long time have received.
We were trying to figure this out. I think I'm 48 or 49. You lose after 40, like who cares, right?
Yeah.
It's uphill, people. It's 40 is uphill. It's not down, because you just stop giving a crap. But, when I was growing up, there was like, somebody may have someone's dad's penthouse or something. But now you could literally type in anything. Like there's nothing stopping my 12-year-old typing literally anything and getting those videos on her computer screen. And so that's because as parents, we've kind of had these discussions, through school and, and this is something I have discussed with my friends, because a lot of my friends have sons. And so they have the similar concern that, if their sons are looking for this sort of thing, they're not finding dad's penthouse. They're seeing these images where, sex with women is not respectful. There is no intimacy, and it seems to be this aggressive thing. And so that is something that we've spoken about, which is why it came to mind. So that's a topic for another day. But
there are so many topics we could talk about. Write me a list and send it to me.
We're going to do it.
I would be happy to talk with you at any time.
There's a challenge for you guys out there. If you have anything more that you would like us to discuss on this particular topic, on women's sexuality or anything else, please make sure that you reach out to us, send us an email. Our email address is just support@thetransformationproject.net.au, or you can just go to our website, which is just www.thetransformationproject.net.au. There's a contact us section on there, and you can just fill that out, send us a message, get onto our Facebook page, also just the Transformation Project, and send us a message. And we will be more than happy, like we've done in this particular case, to find a specialist or a person to speak about the topic that you want us to speak about. Jacinta, thank you so much for coming on with us today. It's been absolutely eye-opening. I think Jess and I have learned so much.
We have. Totally. Yes. It's been so good. Thank you so much.
Yeah, pleasure. Thank you for inviting me. I've loved it. Yeah, I'm happy to come back whenever.
Amazing. Thanks so much, everybody. And thank you for joining us today on the Transformation Project. Thank you for listening in to this episode of the Transformation Project. The Transformation Project is not just a podcast. We're also a community. We're a collective of like-minded people all around the world seeking to live their best life and raise each other up. We're looking to support you, set goals, get healthier, connect with yourself and others at a deeper level, and better understand yourself and the world around you. We're always looking to link arms with like-minded people wanting to create more out of life. You can connect with us via our website, which is www.thetransformationproject.net.au. Email us at support@thetransformationproject.net.au. or simply listen in to one of our podcast episodes, which can be found on all podcast platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify. You can even watch some of our episodes on our YouTube channel, simply called The Transformation Project. Please like and subscribe to make sure you hear all the incredible shows and guests we have lined up. If you have any feedback or any comment, we would love to hear those, as well as any ideas or guests that you think we should be interviewing in future. Thank you for joining us on this episode of The Transformation Project.